Hello, everyone. Brother Al McClaney with this week's stewardship video, making this on May 21st, the day after my lovely wife, Janine McClaney's birthday, which was May 20th. Happy birthday to you. And thank everyone for all of the well wishes that came in by phone, by Facebook. Janine often is an inspiration for many of the stewardship videos I do. And her business, J9 Dainty Delights, is an inspiration, and oftentimes I'll use it as an example, as I said before, in the stewardship video. So we're continuing, going to wrap up the SALT plan. I took a pause last week and encourage you to go and look at last week's video on Be Not Afraid. That was the May 14th. Or it may have been the 15th when I make the video. I think it was 14, but it's called Be Not Afraid. And it kind of go into this one also, because in that one, I was talking about the baby formula crisis that we are facing. And I want to take a look at some of those charts later on when some of the companies like Abbott that were mentioned. Before we get too far, because I just mentioned a company, I want to read the disclaimer. No advice should be seen as a recommendation, as I'm not a licensed financial advisor, and this is for educational purposes only. So that fact that I just mentioned Abbott as a company should not be seen as a recommendation. Do your own research. It is designed to spark ideas and maybe encourage you and inspire you to go look into those areas. So the book we've been using is Chuck Bentley's book called The SALT Plan, How to Prepare for an Economic Crisis of Biblical Proportion. This was written several years ago, but very relevant and applicable today. You've been hearing a lot of talk in your heads talk about inflation and the bear market. I can say we're in a bear market when it comes to the stock. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to lead to a recession, but all indicators point to possibly going into a recession. And last week we were talking about Be Not Afraid. So we need to be forewarned is prepared. So in the SALT plan, which you can get for about $12.99 on Amazon, or if you have a Kindle like I do, it's only $9.99. I encourage you to take a look at that, buy it, or go to a library if your local library has it. So one of the quotes that I said a couple of weeks ago was, the Fed has not been successful in reining in inflation since 1965 without causing a recession. And there are some people out there that feel that they're going to do it on purpose. They're going to drive a car in the ditch to slow down inflation. And what happens when you get a recession? Well, recession starts prices to recede, as well as companies will start to do layoffs. That's one of the primary destructive things that happen during a recession. They're trying to slow the economy down, and recession caused the economy to actually reverse in growth. You'll probably have some negative growth, but that's oftentimes the only way to stop runaway inflation. So in the SALT plan, each letter has a meaning. So S is save, A, asset allocation, L, liquidity, and T, truth. Now, when I started this, I flipped it upside down and I started with truth. First, really, I started with self-reliance. God had put it on my heart to talk about it. But I flipped it over and talked about truth. And then I've dealt with each one. And you can go back and look at the videos of save, asset allocation. And we're going to deal with liquidity in this particular video. So before we start, I want to do the T again, kind of just a reminder. And the truth is God's word. That is the truth that we're talking about. And it has many things to say, as I've talked about before, about biblical finances. Over 2,000 scripture dealing with finances and resources. So do you think God knew that we were going to need some principles to help us in this area? Absolutely. So Proverbs 22:3, Proverbs 21:20, 22:7, and Ecclesiastes, I've gone over these several times, but that's truth in different areas. I'm going to specifically talk about liquidity. And you can see over to the left, that is a picture you probably recognize. There's Abraham with his son Isaac, where God told him to sacrifice Isaac. And Abraham is called a father of faith because he acted in faith many times as tested by the Lord. But we know that as a famous part or story in Abraham's life, Isaac, but it didn't start there. One of the things it started with was him being directed to move. And so I had never thought of this as a liquidity, but the way Chuck Bentley handles this in his book, he's looking at liquidity is one of the things from a biblical perspective is being able to listen, and move and act on God. So you're not tied down in such a way that through worldly things in your life that you can't move and act on what God has told you, whether that be debt, or you have tied yourself down to a particular job, or you've tied yourself down to a particular type of lifestyle. Here, Abraham, first thing in Genesis 12, verses 1-2, the Lord had said to Abraham, to Abram, at that time he hadn't changed his name, Abraham, Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. And we know that became the nation of Israel. And I will bless you. I will make your name great and you will be a blessing. And goes on in verse 4. What was Abraham's response, or Abram's response? So Abram departed in faithful obedience as the Lord directed him. And you go down to Genesis 12:10, and Amplified says, now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe. Again, he wasn't tied down, he was liquid. And let's look at more meaning of liquid. So again, Chuck Billing takes a different direction, and I never thought of that as being liquid, right, with your life. So here's a couple of things that are quotes from that Salt Plan book about liquidity. In biblical terms, that was the first one we dealt with. Liquidity is simply being available, unhindered, and mobile to answer God's calling. And that's what Abram demonstrated. We should have that also in our lives. So let's look at it from like another standpoint. Liquidity is also known as marketability, meaning there is a ready market for your asset. And that asset could be anything from your talent, meaning you could move to another job. And we talked about how right now, part of inflation is there are huge openings in companies, and they're also having to compete for labor talent. So the wages are going up. And while it's good for us employees, because I'm still an employee, it can be difficult for companies, so they raise prices. So it becomes a double-edged sword. Yes, wages are going up, but also prices are going up as a lot of companies are doing that to keep their profits. So again, liquidity is also known as marketability, meaning there is a ready market for your asset, someone willing to buy for cash. So whether it's your job skills, you're able to move around in the market, your home, able to sell the market. And me and my wife say, oh yeah, you can sell your home now, but where are you going to live? Because the prices are going up on buying a home. And then in modern day, the last quote here, in modern day market terminology, liquidity is the ability to easily convert an asset to cash or cash equivalent. So for instance, your home is not liquid because depending on the market right now, I mean, you can sell it pretty easily in about a week, and if that long, right? But the most textbook answer what a liquid asset is in finance terms, that would be cash. And I always tell people, remember, cash is an asset. Cash is an asset. Oftentimes we want to look over that when we're talking about stocks and bonds and different type, mutual funds. But cash is also a position. It's also an asset. So let's look at that ability to convert into cash. So if you're liquid, it gives you a lot of flexibility. There's things you can do in the market. And let's look at a couple of quotes. First, from Baron Rothschild, it talks about buy when there's blood in the streets, even if the blood is your own. Meaning, for instance, the market has been crashing. It has been going down. And Baron Rothschild is saying that's the time to buy, right? Warren Buffett said the stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. And what he's talking about, if you did your research and you consider, for instance, Tesla was a great buy, it's an even better buy now because it's down. So if the fundamental and the reason why you decided to buy Tesla, and that's why you should do your research, not just buy it because everyone else is doing it, but buy because you had a rationale and a strategy on why you buy, then it's an even better buy now. So he's talking about patience right now. And here is Warren Buffett, and I'm showing you where he is putting this into effect right now. Be fearful when others are greedy. So when we're at the top of the market, that's when everyone's trying to buy. When that's actually the most risky when it's at market highs. But then he says, be greedy when others are fearful. So right now it's probably less risk because the market is going down, it's bottoming out. Eventually it will stop. We don't know when that is, only God knows. But I'm gonna show you how Warren Buffett is using liquidity, and he's using right now, be fearful when others are greedy, be greedy when others are fearful. So the market's going down, right? So if you listen to his philosophy, he's probably being greedy, meaning he's buying right now. And sure enough, he is. Take a look at this. So before he could get to this position, so right now in this quote, it says Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway returns to its big spending ways with $51 billion in stock purchases. So not only Berkshire's probably, and I haven't looked to see that, but they're probably doing this because you're seeing a lot of companies buying back their own stock, because if it's on sale, they're going to buy it back. But right now, Warren Buffett's out there buying. Now, the areas he tends to be buying in right now, oil, and he let go a lot of his Wells Fargo positions, and seems to be buying some more Bank of America. And I showed you where you can go out to CNBC Berkshire Hathaway portfolio, and you can look at what his portfolio looks like now. And I could tell you he bought a lot of oil stocks. Occidental was one of his big purchases. I think he's buying more Apple right now, but you can look out and see an Activision Blizzard. I know he did a big purchase of those, and you can see what percentage, and that may be like an eye chart, but you can look at it closer, what percentage of his stock portfolio of Berkshire Hathaway, which is a company, he has a large percentage of it, 38% of it's in Apple, 7% still in Co, 8% still in Chevron, and if you go down, 10% Bank of America. And I don't see the Occidental on here. I cut it off before then, but if you go look at it, he's been making a lot of purchases. So he's making some energy bets. And I've heard a lot of people say they think 4 or 5 years down the road that a barrel of oil is going to go to 150 or $150 a barrel. Right now, I think it's 75. I haven't looked at it lately, but it's steady rising. And I don't have to tell you that because you just look at the gas prices. So how did Warren Buffett get to this point? He was liquid. He had some cash on the sidelines that he could invest when he saw something that he thought was a good value. And he is what you call a value investor. When he sees something that he thinks is below what it actually should be running for as far as the stock price, he'll go in and buy. So he's a value investor. So right now, technology is getting beat up and creamed. And I know right now it's counterintuitive to go buy. But if you're looking at a long-term 10-year, even 5-7 year down the road, this is the time to go in. I know Bitcoin is getting beat up. So if the original plan and strategy and your research said, hey, there was a reason why you were going to buy Bitcoin, this would be the time to go in. And I know right now you can be fearful. Go back to the last video, be not afraid, and look at Warren Buffett. I think he knows a little bit about investing and when to invest. Look at Berkshire Hathaway now. One of the things is Berkshire Hathaway is off of a high. Now, these are Berkshire Hathaway B shares. There's another share where it's A, where he doesn't split them. I think it's about $30,000 a share right now, something like that. But notice this is off the high that was in March. So it's down. It was at $359 back in March of this year. It's down to about $304 as everything has been going down. And maybe you do your stock slices, or like I know some people, they're using their Cash App. You could actually get stock through there, and they're buying share, or not full shares, but partial shares through those mechanisms. So let's go and switch gears, and quickly, I want to look at the earnings this week, as well as I want to take a look at some of those baby formula companies we talked about last week, see what they're doing right now. So this week, we got Best Buy reporting. We've got, so in other words, some good consumer stocks are reporting. Macy's, Costco, Big Lots. So not as big as last week where we had Walmart and Target, which spooked the market, because Walmart and Target were reporting all those earnings and profits they had from Zoom. I mean, not Zoom. Zoom is actually reporting on Monday. And the reason why I had Zoom on mine, because it was a COVID type of stock where it went up, because what Target and Walmart also did the same thing. Well, a lot of those gains have gone away. So that's what spooked the market last week. So that was one of the things. But speaking of which, Zoom is reporting. And Petco. if you're looking at the industry of, I know our dog Deuce and the expenses associated with him, from vet bills to special food, or if he needs to get his shots, that is a field that will continue, or industry that will continue to go up. Take a look at Petco, watch their earnings, see if that may be a potential. Toll Brothers, I think that's local here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They're going to report it. Some have said, oh, the market for the housing is slowing down. If not, that could be a long-term buy. Dollar Tree and Dollar General reporting. So take a look at those. I don't know if it'll move the market as much as it did last week, but it's still going to be interesting as always. So here's one of the companies I mentioned, and I talked to you, there were 3 companies. This was one of them. The other one was like Gerber and Dannon, which were 3 companies internationally. None of them are in the US that control 45% of the baby formula. So this was one of them. And I don't know if this spike here at the end is because the president has invoked the Industrial Act, that Defense Act, where they will be utilizing that because there's a crisis in baby formula to try to get the industry lifting a lot of different restrictions, opening up different offerings that are available. And I learned one stat, I think 80%, it's a large percent of the baby formulas through the WIC program, and they were limited in the different brands that they could do, but they were opening that up to try to relieve some of this. So could this be a potential, I don't know, short-term buy for a couple of months as we go through this, maybe at least to the end of the year? I don't know if it'll be a long-term, but right now it closed at $77.28 on Friday, when it's had a high just this year of $88. Here's Abbott. This is the only US-based company, or the largest US-based company. The other one's Kraft Heinz, they're in the top 10, but Abbott is not part of that big 3 I talked about, but is the largest one, US-based. And you know that Abbott has other things besides baby formula, but that could be a potential increase in their profits. Again, it's off of its high. The high back earlier this year, $139.04. It hit its low, $105.84 year to date low, and it just closed at $113.24. So there could be some potential movement there. That one is available through like Schwab stock slices, which I'm assuming Fidelity probably also had, and maybe also Cash App. So overall market, selling continues. Selling continues. But as we talked about, there could be some massive short-term rallies even during a bear market. Without a doubt, if you take a look, everyone, that's downtrend. Downtrend continues. You know, had a little rally here, but downtrend continues. Overall, from the high of this year, 401.68 in QQQ is now at $288.68, almost, at least almost 50% decrease. So what do you say right now? Maybe you want to go to the sidelines because the fears just keep you up at night. But if you have a 401k, or you're doing dollar cost averaging where every month you're doing some type of savings mechanism, don't stop that. Maybe you start having it going into cash, put it on sideline. As they say, keep your powder dry. When you feel that, you know what, I think the market's turning back around, or even if it's still at, bottoming out, you're buying shares with your cash at a lower amount. And I'll guarantee you in about 2 or 3 years, for sure, you'll be very happy that you did that. SPY, same thing. It mirrors QQQ. We're definitely in the downtrend, but notice we have those rallies and then back to the downtrend. A little slight rally here, downtrend, rally, ended with downtrend, and then slightly up on Friday. So you can see, even during bear markets, when we're going in a downtrend, there are rallies that happen. And what people sometimes use those rallies to do is what they call get short, in which there's a strategy where you can make money when the market's going down. And then some people also use, okay, if it goes back to a down market, there's particular stocks that I've been wanting to buy, they're on sale, but that's part of your strategy. So the last thing, I want to come back to that term I was talking about in liquidity. where it was talking about simply being available, unhindered, and mobile to answer God's calling. And my cousin Dorlester Avery sent this to me, and I just looked at it and said, you know what, this is probably what that looks like. Now, I don't know if these individuals that are helping these this elderly couple are Christians or not, but it also goes to the fact that we don't define who God uses, and sometimes we don't we disqualify ourselves, saying God can't use us when He can't. And the backdrop of this, and I'll let this play, is that there was a sheriff who just started watching these young people that ended up helping this elderly couple get in the car. So I'll just let it play. And again, I think this is what, to me, biblical liquidity looks like: being available, unhindered, and mobile to answer God's calling.
It was a sight worth stopping for. 3 young men helping an elderly couple struggling to get to their car.
Take it easy, y'all.
Sheriff's Deputy Kenesha Carnegie was driving by at the time.
As I was sitting there, I looked to my left and I noticed these young men helping this elderly couple. So I went over to assist them. I jumped out my truck, I went over to assist them. And when I got there, they kind of had it under control, So I thought at the time they looked really beautiful. That was a nice view to see, and I stepped back and I videoed them.
Watch as they carefully lift 89-year-old Rose Grease into her car. Rose's 100-year-old husband David stands nearby. The men don't leave until they make sure the couple is safely inside.
Thank you so much, fellas.
Yeah, no problem, bro.
I'm 100 years old.
Yeah, 100 years old? Yeah, you still moving. That's good.
Thank you.
Kenesha says she hopes the video inspires others to lend a helping hand.
That's the beauty of it, to see them, to let their parents, even their parents, their mothers, their fathers, their grandparents, to see something. I didn't anticipate this to go viral. I didn't anticipate this at all.
Thank you.
All right, take it easy, Mama.
So I hope that played over, and if it doesn't, that means that the YouTube police got it for copy infringement. But if it does, it was a video, and I think if you just do Inside Edition, teenagers or helping young people helping out an older couple, you'll probably find it. So I'm hoping that it doesn't get cut, but if it does, then that's what it was about. Is I think a great picture and illustration of being available for the answer God's calling. So that's it for this week. As always, below you can see how you can subscribe and get in touch with me. And as my pastor Denny White Davis said at St. John Baptist Church, have a great week. Remember to keep a good spirit. And as we always say with the stewardship video, remember Jesus is Lord, therefore He's the owner, but we are His faithful stewards. See you all next week.